we learn the history, the travesty, and the journey of a young woman whose only crime was to have a child out of wedlock, thus becoming what was known at the time as a moral defective, which resulted in not only her abandonment at one of Lancashire's most notorious asylums and becoming estranged from her family for 60 years, but the loss of her child, who was taken from her and adopted, never knowing his real mother's name, or the terrifying and lifelong journey that she endured, and that still haunts her, from Brockhall Asylum.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel, Paranormal Reports, and thank you very much for tuning in. And it's Good Friday, so I hope you all have a fantastic Easter. So where am I today? Well, I'm in a place called Old Lango. Fantastic wee name. And if you have seen my previous video about the abandoned cemetery of the forgotten babies, where 1,172 former patients of Calderstones Asylum lay in an unmarked field, then Calderstones Asylum had a neighbour, and that was Brockhall Asylum. Brockhall Asylum opened in 1904. It was originally built to house habitual drinkers. You know, people who like to drink. It initially only held no more than 200 patients, and this was women. And then came along the 1920s, and the asylum expanded massively. Absolutely insanely massively, and it formally then became an institution for mental and moral defectives. And at that point it was holding up to 2,200 patients. Absolutely insane. Now look at this picture on the screen. Just look at the actual scale of this place. It's absolutely insane. Brockhall closed as an institution in 1992. All the residents who had not been resettled back into their communities went to live at its neighbour, Calderstones Asylum. Just like Calderstones, both mental and moral defectives could spend their entire life at the asylum. So Brockhall, it held lifelong patients, and if they didn't get out, they sadly died there. So there was a need for Brockhall to have its own cemetery. When a patient died in the asylum, their relatives were always contacted to take the body away for burial at home. But if there was no response from the relatives, then the hospital itself took over the responsibility, and the body used to be buried here in the churchyard of St Leonard's, and here. But in 1932 this all changed. The church and the parish were concerned that the respectable dead, as they put it, of the parish would be overwhelmed by the asylum's dead, and decided not to accept any more patients who had sadly passed in the cemetery. So what the parish did here is, in 1932, they told the asylum they were not taking any more bodies, and in this cemetery. What the hell, guys? So the asylum took drastic measures and they built like a barrier along here, guys, right? Basically separating the parish's cemetery, almost segregating these poor souls of the asylum who sadly passed, segregating them once more. Not only have they been segregated in life, but now in death they have been segregated by the church, by the parish, the only people who you probably would have thought would have actually cared even in death. So guys, over in the distance behind me is the pristine and well-maintained cemetery of St Leonard's here in Old Langlo. The same cemetery that denied the poor and forgotten people who sadly passed at Brockhall Asylum. This is it. Believe it or not, this is it. This, just like calderstones, is what the former residents of Brockhall Asylum get as their final resting place. This, look at it, it's a field, nothing special, absolutely, this is it. So this cemetery is divided up, just like calderstones, by religious association into 3 distinct sections. So they have the Church of England, they have the Roman Catholic, and they have an other faiths section. There's 71 of the people buried here. 71 people buried here were actually under 16 years old, so they were children. 71 in here, and not very much to remember them by, absolutely not. Luckily there was one gentleman who did remember them, but we will get into that. And if it wasn't for this guy, every memory in this wee field would have been forgotten, absolutely. There's actually some minor discrepancies in the numbers of people buried in this field, because apparently some parents actually got buried here with their children, so the numbers are a wee bit fluctuated. I've just had a very fascinating chat with a local couple, Caroline and Mark. I'd like to give you two a wee shout out and thank you very much for your time. So a local couple who just live over the back over there, just where I walked through the Lich Gate, they were telling me that the expansion in this area, due to property developers yet again causing many problems for idyllic and beautiful locations like this, it's absolutely terrible. So over the back over this direction is Blackburn Rovers training ground, football training ground, and they have proposed to build multiple hundred new homes right over the back of this beautiful village. It's absolutely insane, guys. What's going on? Now, Caroline and Mark also just told me that upon this field that you see here, which really should be a memorial cemetery, but upon this field used to be a lot of little memorials for the people who actually lied here. Almost like this, guys. See, there's one. Luckily, there's a couple here. A beautiful one there. So, we're going to take a wee walk up here. Now, this wee building you see here is the old grave digger's hut. Now, I don't know if it's the council, and I don't know if it's a contractor, but look at this, guys. Look at this. This is the memorials for the sad the people who sadly passed and got laid to rest in this field, and this is their memory. Gee Whitworth, look, oh my God, guys, 7-year-old Stephen, and look, it's broken. This is disgusting. I'm actually disgusted, guys. I'm disgusted. They've just tossed them here. Oh my God. Look, folks. Look at this. They have, look, Grace, guys. I'm actually disgusted. I'm actually disgusted, guys. So, either the council or contractors, whether it's to make their job easier, to cut the grass. So they take all the memorials and they toss them over there. It's absolutely disgusting. Like these guys' lives wasn't hard enough that the council can't have it a little bit hard to cut the grass around these memorials. What's going on, guys? I'm disgusted. I'm absolutely disgusted that those final memories of those former patients who had it horrible in life and now got it horrible in death. Get my iPad. Well, as I mentioned earlier, folks, there was one gentleman, and back in the 90s he purchased a lease to all of the land that the former Brockhall Asylum lied on. And when he purchased it, he got this cemetery, and thanks to this very kind gentleman, his name was Gerald Hitman. Now Gerald is actually laid to rest here. Gerald sadly died, 59 years old. This is Gerald's son. He also died in a motorbike accident in Thailand. Now thanks to Gerald, at least we can remember the names and ages of every member every former patient from Brockhall Hospital who now lay in this field. And this is what Gerald got installed. Look at this, guys. Absolutely incredible. That's the back of it. There was a young girl, 17 years old, and her name was Florence. Now, Florence at the time was a moral defective. She had a baby out of wedlock. That was her only crime, having a baby out of wedlock. Now, Florence's mum and stepdad forced Florence to put that baby up for adoption, like many parents at the time would have done with their child if they had it out of wedlock. Now, they did that, they made her do it on the pretense that if she did not, she would go to Brockhall Asylum. But they did it. They adopted the baby out, and the baby went. And then the men in white coats came for Florence, and she got dragged away to the hospital up in that direction, and that is where she stayed. 17 years old. She's lost her baby, she's lost her family, and now she's in a mental asylum with other mental and moral defectives. The Florence, she hated it with a passion, absolutely hated it. And in her words, she said the patients in there, whether it be by the staff or each other, but they got dragged around and they got put in padded cells, and they were screaming and crying, and the emotion was intense. Absolutely, it would have been. It's an asylum. Now, thankfully, the staff at the asylum got to know Florence and very quickly realised Florence wasn't a problem. There was nothing wrong with Florence. Florence just had a baby out of wedlock. She was absolutely fine. Therefore, the staff, they give Florence a job in the staff canteen, you know, helping. Until one day, a delivery driver showed up to bring supplies to the canteen. Florence was out the back, whether it be a sunny day, just like this, relaxing, and saw the gate open, and that was her chance. And Florence ran, and she ran right out the gate, throwing her apron behind her, running away. So Florence then hitchhiked her way all the way to London, ending up at a place called Angel Islington. Now, she stayed at Angel Islington for a reason, because she liked the name, and having the angel in there, to her personally, it was like she needed help from above. So that's why she chose Angel Islington. Now, she slept rough on the streets. She was homeless, and she managed to get a wee job as a waitress, eventually making enough money to get a wee place of her own. So she finally got her own wee place. Now, her name was Florence, and she knew she could be tracked and brought back to Brockhall Asylum. So she needed a new name. Now, Florence saw an advert for Stone's whiskey and wine, so she chose the surname Stone. She then changed her first name to Diane, and she just chose Diane randomly, but she chose Stone because of the advert. Here's a wee picture of the advert she may have seen from Stone's whiskey and wines. Now Florence, now Diane, eventually met a young gentleman, a very quiet guy, but he was a lovely guy, and they had 2 children together, and they grew up together, growing old together, and life was finally good for Florence. So comes the 1990s, back in Manchester, where Florence was originally from, and builders were doing some building work in Manchester City, and they came across a skeleton buried, and the skeleton was a female, aged between 16 and 30 years old, and this skeleton had very strange clothing on it, and I'm going to show you a wee picture of the clothing that was found on the remains. Here it is. Being in Manchester, because that's where Florence was from, being a young girl, based on the ages, Florence's family assumed those remains were Florence. So a big police investigation was underway. Is this Florence? During the police investigation, police managed to trace Florence from Manchester all the way to Islington in London, and they found her and realised it wasn't Florence's remains, but this gave her an opportunity to rekindle with her family. It had been 60 years since she last saw her family. She was petrified of being sent back to the hospital. Even when the police were doing their investigation and they contacted her, even at that point, she thought she still would be sent back to Brockhall Asylum. But they assured her she wouldn't. They assured her, you will be fine. So she rekindled with her family. After 60 years on the run, all because she got sent to Brockhall Asylum. How bad must it have been in there? So Florence, now Diane, has her own 2 grown sons, grown children, and her son's called Glenn, and she is now undertaking the probable impossible task of trying to locate the child that her mum and dad forced her to put up for adoption all those years ago. All of that shows you one example of how a life is ruined, how a girl felt compelled to run to the other side of the country, change her name, avoid her entire heritage, history, all for being sent to Brockhall Asylum. Now, how many other stories are like that? How many other men, women and children from both Brockhall Asylum and Calderstones Asylum had similar experiences or similar horrific experiences. It's absolutely insane what being sent to such an asylum mentally does. Even though a lot of the patients, sadly, yes, had the mental problems, but a lot of them didn't, and a lot of them were just moral defectives because society at the time, I tell you what, society was the moral defective, not these individuals. It's absolutely insane. And learning the story about Florence, learning the story about the cemetery here at Brockhall Asylum, learning that they got buried in unmarked graves, and even the ones that did get a little memorial, even they got their final memorial tossed aside, and now they lie behind the gravedigger's shed. These people were tossed away in life. Now their memories are tossed away in death. And it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening, guys. So that concludes this video, and I'm quite upset to find that the poor people who went to these asylums just didn't get a chance. They just didn't get a chance in life, and they're not getting a chance, sadly, in death. And from me, and no doubt you guys, we hope that each and every one of them who lie here at Brockhall Asylum Cemetery and Calderstones Cemetery, and to the ones who lie in St Leonard's Church Cemetery, we hope that they all rest in peace. Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate you tuning in. It's very emotional, these stories with these asylums, and hearing these stories, that what these people went through, what they had to endure. It's a shame. So thank you, guys. I really do appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I want to give a special thanks to the Friends of Calderstones Cemetery and the society that they've set up and all the work that they do. They do a lot of work, and without their efforts, no doubt cemeteries like this, with the sad, forgotten people who lie beneath them in just a barren field, their memories would be gone. So thank you to Calderstone Cemetery. I would also like to ask, here at this field where the former residents, men, women and children lie, in that field where their memorial stones have been tossed aside behind the gravedigger's shed, if anybody can help me figure out why those stones were just tossed aside, like the people buried beneath the ground up there were just tossed aside. If you can help me shed some light on that, I'd truly appreciate it. So thank you, guys. Until next time, you all take care. All the best.